right, guys, it's the Welsh Audio 1000.1D. Now, I don't know, but that is what I thought about calling this if I were to go with this amp, and I'd probably have 1000.1D put like right here or down here or something like that. I don't know. I will say I just saw something a little bit different out of this amp when messing with the low pass filter. I believe it was the low pass filter. I may have to circle back at the end of the video to talk about that because I don't know. Let's just move on. I may talk about that later. But I saw something here a minute ago that looked a little more promising. I don't know. Let's get to it. This is a 40 hertz test tone at 4 ohms, rated 350. Let's see what it's going to do. Oh, that distortion light came on way early. 378. The voltage only dropped to 14.7. The current draw was 43.9. Let's do this dynamically. We're gonna have to take a look at that distortion. That is one of the things I was referring to. Let's see, sine wave. No, the burst. It's track 3 here. Let's see what it'll do dynamically. Only a few more watts. Okay, that's the end of the test. All right, let's hook it up to 2 ohms. All right, here we go. 2 ohms, rated 600 watts. Let's unpause the track. What's it gonna do? We're gonna see 600. Golly, look at that distortion light. That's weird. It's on and then it goes out. Ooh, still going. 668. The voltage dropped to 14.6 and the current draw was 80.1. Cool. Let's zero this out and go to that track 3 and see what it'll do dynamically. Okay. 678. What was that, about the same or a little bit less than the uncertified? I don't know. This distortion light is weird. That is one of the things I noticed when I first received the amp. We're probably going to put this thing on the O-scope here in a little bit and show you. Let's take a look at that. I've already looked at it once. But seeing the numbers that it puts out is good. I have a feeling that this is only a little bit of distortion, like 1 or 2%. Like not enough to hear, but enough to turn on the distortion light on the DD1. And that's a shame. All right, let's do 1 ohm. Can it survive the 1 ohm test? The 1 ohm uncertified test is pretty tough on an amp on a resistive load. But if an amp is rated to go to 1 ohm, I feel like it should do it with 10 dBs of overlap. Let's see if it'll do it. All right, 1 ohm, certified and uncertified. Can it handle the test? Oh boy. Let's find out. Rated with 1,000 watts. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I heard the fuses. 1034. It's in protect. Let's turn it off. Turn it back on. I heard the fuses. So I think it's got a blown fuse or two. And it did it right there at the end. I'm gonna be honest with you. If I had my overlap set a little less than 10 dBs, I don't think it would have blown those fuses. But it did 131.5 amps. And the voltage dropped to 14.5. And it did its rated power. Now, it did its rated power uncertified. That distortion light sure does like to come on this amp. Let me check these fuses and see if we can get the amp to come back on. All right, guys. Well, with 131.5 amps and two 40 amp fuses, that's enough to cause them to want to blow on you. Let me see if I got some more of these, and we will pop some in. If I do, I would like to try lower than 1 ohm, but only dynamically. And I'll be honest with you guys, I need to do a little more research, because maybe 10 dBs of overlap is just too much. Maybe I need to start scaling that back. Maybe I need to do 5 dBs of overlap, and just let it be what it is. If the clip light comes on, great. If it don't, it don't. We'll call that the uncertified number. Or maybe I need to get the DD1 plus and start setting my gains at the exact, 7.5 dBs of overlap, or 8, or maybe 9. I'm not real sure, but I need to take a second look at this, because I have blown 3 or 4 amps now at that 10 dBs of overlap, and they do it right there at the end. All right, let me look for some fuses. All right, guys, this is going to be a 0.67 burst. So 0.67 dynamic at 40 hertz. This is a good time to say this too. I think I've said this before in another video or two. The instructions for the AD1 and the AMM1 from Steve Mead and Tony DeMore, they just say to set the gain overlap to at least, it exactly says that, at least -5. Well, -5, and I reckon they know this, that's probably the way they got it worded that way, is not enough to turn on the clip light in just about all cases. So they know that it's going to need -5 or more of overlap to turn on that clip light. But what they don't say is exactly what to set it to. So when you get the CD, I've bought the CD and the thumb drive from those guys. The thumb drive has a whole lot of tracks on it. The CD, it only has the overlaps. It has 0 dB. For 40 hertz, for example, 0, -5, -10, -15. It doesn't have those that are in between. But if you get the DD1 plus and the AD1 has the DD1 plus built in, then you can dial in any overlap you want. So I may have to invest in a DD1 plus and find my own overlap that I like. But let's get to it. Can this thing handle, oh, I did put 2 new 40 amp fuses in it. Can this thing handle 0.67 dynamically? Oh, it did come out of Protect too, by the way. So it was only blown fuses. Thank goodness that they had fuses in here, or that might have blown the amp. Let's see if it can handle it. Nope. Nope. I heard them blow instantly, and it pulled 170 amps of current during that first, and it's back into Protect. All right, guys, let's put this thing on a turn the amp off first. But let's put this thing on a scope. I'm assuming these are fine. I'll check this off camera, and I'll come back with the results. But let's hook this thing up to the O scope and look at that signal, why that distortion light comes on way early. Because it looks like this is a decently stout amp. This thing has stayed cool the whole time. I mean, it's a big heat sink. We'll look at the gut shot too, and you'll see that the heat sink is pretty large here. There are some nice guts in here though. But let's look at that signal on the O scope. So no, it does not like to go below 1 ohm, but I'm gonna say, I don't know. I'm gonna say it handled that 1 ohm test, because I know that I'm pushing this thing pretty hard. It did blow the fuses. It did not blow the amp. It did its power. It just sucks because a lot of amps that I test, I do that same test on. I do -10 on a lot of amps, and they survive. So that's my problem with it. But anyhow, all right, let's get this thing on the O-scope. All right, we might have blown the amp. The fuses are out of it. They are blown. It's still in protect, and I've got 12 volts. See the blue light? This is the remote turn on. I've got 12 volts coming out of the remote wire. This is turned off right now, so let me just show you. This is off, and this is on. So this thing is giving me 12 volts. There must be something going on internally here. I'm gonna do some more checking off camera, but I have a feeling that something blew inside the amp that's giving me 12 volts out of the remote wire at all times. I've never had that happen. But I'm gonna unhook either the power or ground and probably hook it back up. Like really take the power away from the amp and then hook it back up and see if this like resets and just see what happens. But wanted to show you all that. All right, guys, we have blown the amp. So I put a multimeter on the remote there with it unhooked, and I do have 12 volts coming out of that. And this is interesting. So I unhooked the negative wire first. The positive was still on and the light was still on, and I was like, all right, well, let me put the negative back on and unhook the positive. And so watch, I'll take this loose and the light goes out and I'll touch it. It comes back on and I unhook it and it goes out and I hook it back up. So that's what's causing that light to come on. It did not reset. This amp is blown. I am bummed about that. I don't know, because it's got my name on it. I wanted it to be a good working amp. It puts out decent power. It's not clean enough power. So let me tell you too. So when I first got this in, I noticed right away while setting the gains that distortion light, it starts putting out distortion as soon as you get signal. Now I was able to get rid of some of that by turning the low pass down a little bit. Because I had the filters open completely up like normal, and it was doing it. And I was like, well, let me play with the filters while watching the light and just turn all of these up and down. Well, I noticed the low pass, I could turn that light off, and it was still well above 40 hertz, which is what I was going to be playing. What does that say there? 40 to 180. So I was like, yeah, that's weird. Why is that giving me distortion? I don't know, when I'm playing a 40 hertz test tone. Anyhow, long story short, I hooked it up to the scope. I think I already deleted the picture, but it gives a funny, it's not clipped, but it's not a perfectly round sine wave. It's got like a little jag in it, about halfway going up or going down. But I don't know, guys. That was the deal. I had already decided I wasn't going to go with this amp because it wasn't clean enough. And I have contacted, this was a couple weeks ago, I contacted the factory. I told them what it was doing. I sent them some pictures, and they said, yes, we know different countries have different standards for quality. And I said, well, here in America, this is pretty much the standards for us because of YouTube channels like mine. And I let them know that I had a YouTube channel. And I said, look, I can't come out with an amp that puts out a dirty signal or doesn't do its rated power. Even if I need to change what it's rated, I'm willing to maybe do that. But they said, we understand. The other model that's on the way puts out a clean signal. So wait on that one and let us know how the testing goes with that amp. They didn't deny it. They didn't act like I did anything wrong. They accepted it. I will tell you this, that other amp that came in put out the prettiest signal of all 4 amps that I've received so far, but it had a different issue. So you're going to need to stay tuned to what I'm calling amp number 4 for the results of that amp. But the signal on that amp was nice and pretty. It was just a perfect sine wave all the way up till it'll clip, and it was the cleanest of all four. Anyhow, so that's it on the the 1000 watt model from this particular company. I'm not going to say which factory this is. Those were blown, by the way. And when I took them out, as y'all saw a second ago, the light was still on. I thought when I pulled one or both of these fuses out, that light would go off, but it didn't. But guys, I guess that's it for this one. Since the amp is blown, there's nothing else I can do with it, and this is a long video anyway. So stay tuned for amp number 2, 3, 4. Number 5 is on the way, and there might end up being 1 or 2 more after that, because the truth is I just don't know the results of all this yet. I don't know if I'm going to find an amp that I like, or if I'm going to pull the plug on the whole thing and not come out with an amp. But anyhow, if I make this go public, I would love y'all's feedback on any and all of what you've seen here. I would love to hear from you and let me know what you think, especially since this is going to be the first amp that you'll probably see. So, all right, guys, that's it. Hey, thanks for watching. All right, guys, I almost forgot the gut shot. Here we go. Let's see what we got. All right. There she is. I feel like that's a decent looking board. And internals, you can see it's a pretty big amp with some extra, the heat sink is a little large here. They could have made this amp smaller, but you know what? It's good for heat dissipation. Decent looking internals there, decent size internals. Some of you guys know what you're looking at a lot better than I do. I cannot find anything wrong in here, like obvious visual. I don't know why it's something's wrong with it. You know what? Look right there. My son actually noticed this yesterday, and I forgot about that. Whatever that is right there, I don't know. That's just right behind the RCAs. I don't know what's wrong with it. But also, I did find the photo of the funky sine wave that the DD1 keeps picking up on this amp. And it picks it up. If you've got the filter open all the way up on the low pass, it picks it up as soon as it detects signal. It's just like some of those LOCs that do not put out a good signal, and it's distortion immediately. That's what the DD1 picks up on this amp, and it's because of the funky sine wave. At the very end of this video, I will enter the picture, the still shot of what that sine wave looks like. I was glad that I was able to find that to be able to include it in this video. Okay, guys, that is it for this one. Make sure you watch the other ones. This is what I'm referring to as amp number 1. There's 4 currently. There's a 5th one that's supposed to show up at my house tomorrow. So make sure you check out the other videos. Thanks for watching.